Plus, to be part of your day, we continue on. Joining us now, Dr. Tommy Ahlquist. Dr. Ahlquist, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Not bad. You sound fired up and ready to go.
Fired up in Coeur d'Alene today, and just spending the day up here in North Idaho. I have a bunch of events, so we're really excited to be back up north, and it's getting close, Kevin. I know you're enjoying this for just 3 more weeks.
Yes, I don't know what I'm going to do after the primary is over. Of course, that's on to the general. What are the issues that are important to the folks that you're speaking with, sir?
You know, everywhere I go, that's the one thing, you know, the whole politics side of this thing, it's just, you know, the hypocrisy that's in politics is just almost, you know, you almost can't even bear it. But the good news is you get out in the field, out with the people, and it's the same issues, Kevin. People are desperate for solutions to healthcare. We have got to fix healthcare in America. Idaho can lead the way in a conservative way, and there's things we can do right now, but it needs to be real solutions. You know, we're under attack from both sides. The left wants socialized medicine, but the right, it's big business and cronyism. And that's what I've been taking on. And I get that taking on both sides of that is very hard. And that's why these professional politicians are so against anything that's new, because they do not want the status quo broken up. And you hear that everywhere. Education, everywhere you go, you hear education. People are just ready for a change. I think the tuition hikes that just happened this week, we have got to change and modernize K-12 education, but also higher education in the state of Idaho. We have got to use those 2- and 4-year degrees to connect Idaho kids to Idaho companies. There's so much more we can do that'll keep our kids in Idaho and protect our future in Idaho if we get things right. So that's another one, taking on the status quo. You know, it's not going to be more money. It's going to be leadership and education. And I hear that everywhere I go. And then lastly, small business. You know, you hear over and over and over again, please win this so you can represent us. Please win this so that we have someone in the executive branch of government that actually understands small businesses, understands what we go through every day, what we fight against as small business owners in the state of Idaho. And again, the status quo. You've got big business so well represented. You look at my opponents and look at their donations and look at what I'm up against. You know, I get challenged all the time by these guys, but it's because they don't want the status quo broken up, and I get that. But we're going to do it. There's only 3 weeks left. We've never felt better, but I'm going to keep my mind and my eyes out, looking forward to the future of Idaho and talking about solutions. And that's what we're doing all week this week, and we're excited.
Dr. Tommy Ahlquist with us, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's talk about the One Idaho Tour. That's where you are right now, right?
Well, we started on Tuesday. So what we're going to do is, you know, Kevin, we've never stopped touring the state. As you know, I'm on the road every day almost. And we've had so many meet and greets and business tours, and we've visited so many school districts. But we sat back a few weeks ago as a team and said, how do we want to end this? And one of the things that's been really striking to me is just how disconnected we are right now under our current leadership as a state. North Idaho does not feel like it's connected to the great state of Ada. Eastern Idaho feels the same way. The Magic Valley is doing fine on their own, but it's all the same challenges are facing us as Idaho. And so we're going to do a One Idaho tour at the end of this. We're going to plant 133 One Idaho flags in 133 Idaho towns over 11 days. We're going to leave next Tuesday morning at 8:30 from Eagle. And we're going to go to 133 towns, and we're going to take this One Idaho flag. And the message is, let's come together. Let's come together as One Idaho with vision. I believe with all my heart that truly, if we have executive leadership from the governor's office and we bring Idaho together, that if we solve our biggest problems as a state, as our good people can do, that we will feel connected. But I believe that's a legislative agenda that comes from the governor's office. I believe it's talking about conservative solutions in healthcare and education for small businesses. I believe it's actually governing with the people in mind and putting people over politics and breaking up this status quo and this cronyism that's gone on so long in Idaho that people feel completely distracted. So it's One Idaho tour. We leave next Tuesday morning, and then we don't come back until just before Election Day, and then hopefully the people get out and vote. And it's been the most humbling experience of my life. I just hope we get people to the polls and and they vote for us, and we can get in and make a difference in the state.
Dr. Tommy Ahlquist joining us here. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. You know, you've been doing the debate scene. Are those effective to get the message out? We've done debate, react, and analysis. And are the voters engaged, or well, what are your thoughts? I know you've got a big one coming up this week with Channel 7.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. People have always said, "Oh, we can't wait for the debates to happen," and I think they play an important role in all of this. It's interesting how few people actually watch them, or because again, we do the debates and then we're right back out in the field talking to people. And so I don't know. I think everything's important. I think when you look back at this on May 15th, Kevin, when it's over, I think every little bit counted. I think the work we've done this year has been so authentic and so genuine. We've been out listening to people for really a year and a half. We've never stopped. And so I think everything adds up. Every one-on-one meeting, every little Moms for Tommy event, every meet and greet, all the work we've done is going to add up. And I think the debates play a role in that. But I think what happens is people like to put too much weight on one specific thing, and it's not that. I think it's a culmination of all the hard work and effort. It's been genuine. It's been consistent. And people in Idaho want to shake your hand. They want to look you in the eye and trust you. And I think that's what we're feeling out in the field, and I think it's going to pay off on election night.
Dr. Tommy Ahlquist joining us here. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. Let's ask a couple questions while we have you. A lot of folks are not satisfied with the status quo at the State House. You've said this before, but for people just tuning in or may haven't heard you, your thoughts on the end of things as they are. Will you take a look at how the State House is run? And I know you have a plan for it, but for people that aren't familiar with it, sir, can you let us know, if elected, how your administration will be different from the one currently in office?
You know what, Kevin? I knew it was bad as a business guy and as a doctor in this state, and watching our state government grow, watching the way they spend our tax dollars. I knew it was bad, but as I've gotten into politics and dug into these agencies, we've been writing a business plan for all 68 agencies of state government. It's far worse than I thought it was. They spend our money, they don't invest it. There is no long-term, multi-year strategy for the things that matter most. I was told early, and I remember being told this by so many politicians, "Oh, you can't run the state like it's a business." Baloney. We need a giant dose of real-world experience. We're going to break up the status quo. It's not going to be who's been in line the longest or who's friends of who, which is the way the whole entire state runs right now. It's run that way so long. And it's the same set of special interests that run the executive branch of government and the legislative branch of government that they don't even know any different. It will be so different. We will bring in real-world solutions, and we're going to break up the status quo, which has been stifling our people. If you look at healthcare, when I think of just one thing, when I listen to these guys talk, they talk about trying to be a solution to a problem they've caused. It is bad policy for decades with healthcare and education that have got us to where we are right now. And then they stand up and act like all of a sudden they're going to have some new solutions to these problems. It's time, outsider. It's time for someone to come in with real-world solutions, and we're ready to do it. My goodness, our people are too good. The status quo might be good enough for government and these political machines, but it is not good enough for our people, and I can't wait to get in there and make this happen.
Dr. Tommy Ahlquist with us here at KIDO Talk Radio for a couple more minutes with Kevin Miller in the morning. Dr. Ahlquist, we've talked a little bit about this before. You're a business person. You've been around the state. We haven't really delved into the refugee situation. I know people on the trail have asked you about it. For people that haven't caught it here at KIDO Talk Radio, I feel like we've covered just about every issue, but I can't assume that people listen all the time. Your thoughts on the state's role in dealing with refugees?
My thought is let's take care of our own. I think there's a safety concern that is absolutely legitimate, right? How do we keep our people safe? Secondly, we live in a state. Come on, we've got so much poverty in Idaho. When you got 1 out of every 3 Idahoans living in poverty or paycheck to paycheck, you look at the number of homeless kids in the Nampa School District alone. We have a problem of taking care of our own people. As an emergency room doctor for all those years, Kevin, taking care of the poor and the people that come into the ER, let's take care of our own people. I think there's a safety concern, but let's put those resources into our own people, and that's how I feel about it. I think it's both safety, but it's also let's put resources into Idaho Idaho people. And that's very compassionate. Some people say, well, that's not compassionate. It's compassionate. Let's take care of our own people, put those resources where they matter right here at home.
Final thought, we go to Steve in Meridian for Dr. Ahlquist at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Steve.
Hey, good morning, Dr. Ahlquist. I've been in Idaho for 8 years, and it's become more and more my own home. I'm from Colorado originally. And my question to you, sir, in trying to not be the typical politician who mentions the buzzwords of solution and change and all this, how, sir, do you reconcile the fact that you're running as a Republican and yet you did not support our fantastic President Trump during that election, and how critical it would have been to cast your vote in demonstrating that Hillary Clinton was the far worse choice?
Hey, listen, I don't know how many times, but I'll keep answering this question. We've done it for a year and a half. I've been a conservative my entire life. I voted Republican my entire life. When I was Marco Rubio's co-chair in the state of Idaho, I went to the Republican debate in Las Vegas and went back and met Marco Rubio several times. I would have voted for President Trump. I would have. The day I cast my absentee ballot, the very day I cast it, that Access Hollywood tape came out. And like many conservatives in this state, it bothered me to my very core. It just bothered me. And I wrote in Marco Rubio that day. But let me be clear, I have supported President Trump since day one of his presidency. I think what he's doing is fantastic. It was a very personal thing for me. And by the way, I told the truth exactly. When asked what I did, I've told the truth on that issue. But I support the president fully and will work with the president fully and think he's doing an amazing job. By the way, of all the candidates right now that are running, look at what he's taking on. He's taking on the status quo in both parties. He's taking on these political establishments, and I'll need to do the same thing in Idaho, and that's why I'm having so much pushback, is because people don't want that. These political machines.
So, sir, if I understand you correctly, you basically we're going to vote for Trump. Then one media push came out, which completely stopped you from voting, but now you're supporting Trump again. So why the back and forth, and why not the consistency to recognize one old school media tape doesn't define a man, and nobody's perfect?
Well, but on the other hand, let me just jump in here.
Kevin.
Well, I will, but let me just say there are a lot of people, in fairness to Dr. Ahlquist, that they like the president, they don't like the president, his personal actions. I mean, that was pretty critical. You have a lot of people that question that, Steve. Again, my own observations, but I won't speak for Dr. Ahlquist.
Well, let me just tell you specifically, Kevin, you know what my life has been in the ER. One of my passions has been in that area, trying to protect victims.
Right.
And that has been a big deal for me. And it's very personal to me. And because of that, I made an emotional decision that day. Now, if I go back to that day, it was an emotional decision. But again, my goodness, to spin this like these other guys are doing, I get it, but it's not true. I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican. I support the president, and that's the bottom line. And I will work directly with him when we win this election on May 15th.
All right, Steve, thank you for the call. Dr. Ahlquist, we'll see you on the trail, and your final thoughts. We'll catch you next week, but your thoughts on making the case to the voters listening right now, sir.
Hey, my thoughts is, we've been at this hard, Kevin. Thank you so much for letting me come on. And I'll just tell you that I think the lanes are very clearly defined now for people, and I trust the voters of Idaho. I think the choice is out there and very clear that if they want someone to come in with new ideas and a fresh approach, come look at this, to look at our budgets, to run this state like it needs to be run, to have real-world leadership where we actually tackle these problems with solutions that matter. If you're out there wondering what you're going to do about your health care coming up, if you're out there wondering how we're going to change education and modernize it, and my goodness, if you're a small business owner, you can either choose the status quo and more the same old with what we've got ahead of us, or give us a shot and vote for us on May 15th. I can't wait to serve the people of Idaho. It's the most humbling opportunity that I have ever had in my life, and I'll work my tail off for them once we win. And I just encourage everyone to get out to the polls and vote for us. So thanks again, Kevin, for letting me on today, and appreciate all you do, and look forward to next week.
Dr. Ahlquist, stay safe on the trail and watch those Diet Cokes.
Thanks, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Ahlquist joining us. Your thoughts next. Also, Bob Nonini, Senator Nonini, coming up as well. Does Idaho need Nonini? And your thoughts on the state governor's race. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. How do we top Contender Wednesday? We call it Thank You Thursday, brought to you by the Boise Rescue Mission. Or I'm sorry, not the Boise Rescue Mission, brought to you by the Boise Music Festival. I've got the Boise Rescue Mission on my mind. Miller's Mission just around the corner, but tomorrow, win family 4-packs to the Boise I keep going Boise Rescue Mission. Well, you can win family 4-packs to them as well. To the Boise Music Festival. Check out Robin Thicke. Check out Baby Bash, Parmalee, Granger Smith. For me, I just think the festival is the star. Listen tomorrow for your chance to win. Thank you Thursdays. Our way of thanking you for supporting this program. We understand that you have a lot of choices in the morning and throughout the day. So thank you for listening to KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller Mornings. We will be at the College of Western Idaho tomorrow promoting our schools, securing our future. We go to Joe in Meridian with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Kevin. Hope you're doing great today.
Still employed, brother.
Hey, a couple thoughts on the governor's race. I listened to the interview you did with Dr. Tommy Ahlquist, and I have a couple concerns. I frankly don't quite buy the whole excuse that he was just a little disturbed that day and didn't vote for Trump. And I get really frustrated with folks in the state that will allow a corrupt media, which they know is corrupt, to influence their decisions on presidential elections. We're getting a lot of progress right now, and for him to say, hey, I couldn't vote for Trump then, but I'm the Trump candidate now, I think is a little bit of a stretch, to be honest. The other thing I think that's very concerning is we don't really have a record of voting or kind of stances from the doctor, and I feel like he's probably a centrist type of a candidate. He's putting himself out there as a conservative, but you know, he mentions things like raising wages. Well, what does that mean? Is he interested in raising the minimum wage and taking away those entry-level jobs for our high school students? And so, you know, the other thing, changing the status quo, what does that really mean? I mean, you can say that all the time, but at the end of the day, it's great to say you want to change things, but I think Idaho's pretty good right now, and frankly, I take some offense to the fact that he says we have a bunch of cronies in the State House. I mean, I think we have very good people. I've met Raul Labrador. I've met Lieutenant Governor Little. I've met Governor Otter. And while I don't agree with everything they do, I wouldn't call them crony politicians either. So those are just some of my thoughts. I was curious what your thoughts were on that.
Let me hit you with another thought, because when that Access Hollywood tape came out, you know, there are a lot of people that get off the bandwagon with President Trump. And my thought is you have a lot of people. Idaho's very unique. On one hand, very conservative, but not so much socially conservative. But on the other hand, and again, I'm giving you like 27 hands here, Joe, you have a lot of people that, you know, were really with Ted Cruz. They were not with President Trump. The Cruz delegates that went to the convention, they were very pro-Ted Cruz.
Sure.
So, you know, it's fascinated me for years, the relationship the president has with this state. Not as uncomfortable as the state of Utah, but the state doesn't embrace him as much. They do more now than, let's say, Alabama or Mississippi or one of those states.
No, it's a great point. And, I mean, we weren't dealing with Ronald Reagan versus Donald Trump, right?
Right.
We were dealing with Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. And, frankly, you know, you got other representatives in the state, like Simpson, who came out and said he'd rather he'd trust Comey more than Trump. Well, that turned out to be a pretty crazy statement, because Comey is a pathological liar, right?
Well, but hold on, but here,
we have documentation of that.
Joe, let's
I just feel I feel like there's. Go ahead.
Oh, you got me so excited here, Joe. I agree with you, but you had, I believe it was Senator Risch that during the end wasn't wholeheartedly endorsing the president. Senator Crapo had some comments about President Trump that got him into trouble. You have Mike Simpson that says whatever he wants. So it wasn't just Dr. Ahlquist on this island. You had 3/4 of the congressional delegation not wholeheartedly endorsing the Republican nominee.
Yes, but then to come back and say you're the Trump candidate, I think that's a little disingenuous. I think to come back and use the Trump name as your calling card for being the outsider coming in, you know, let's be honest here. You weren't going to vote for the guy, and you weren't going to stick behind him when he had trouble. And I get it. I don't agree with everything the guy said either, but I stuck by him. And I guess my point is, if you're going to back off a guy, why are you then going to use his calling card as your mantra to win the election? I think that's pretty bizarre.
I think it's perfect. And I'll tell you why. And by the way, this is what I love to do. I love talking about politics. Sometimes we don't get a chance to do it. You know, when you're talking about Donald Trump, look, he's got pictures of himself with the Clintons. He ran as the reform guy. He was a liberal Democrat. So why can't we have the Idaho version of that?
Well, I mean, like I said, we're not dealing with the situations that we were dealing with nationally in Idaho. We have a balanced budget. We have very conservative leadership. And I think if you put Labrador, Little, and Alquist in a line, I think Alquist is the least conservative of the three, in my opinion. And we don't really have a voting record on what he's going to do. When he says things like raise Idaho wages, what does he really mean by that? And, you know, those things need to be defined. When you say change the status quo, I guess my point is I don't really know what he means by that. What does he mean? And you look at the folks that he has as backers, and a lot of them are fairly centrist. And so, I mean, if you're a centrist in Idaho, vote for him, great. But don't come out and say you're a staunch conservative when the people that are funding and supporting you are more centrist in their politics. I think that's a little disingenuous, in my opinion.
Well, Joe, your opinion is always welcome here. Thank you.
Have a good one. Thanks.
All right, a little spirited debate. KIDO Talk Radio, traffic and weather together. Coming up next, does Idaho need Nonini? That's right. Senator Bob Nonini joins us on Contender Wednesday. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good.
Well. Does Idaho need Nonini?
Idaho needs Nonini.
My man, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. It's beautiful. I was just listening to the weather forecast, and 77 on Friday, or 84 on Friday. What's it going to be down in Boise?
It sounds good to me. A little rain, kind of, but then it warms up, according to Larry Gebbert, yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful up here this morning in Coeur d'Alene. I've been home for a few days and been working around North Idaho on the campaign trail. What a great state, huh? Nothing like Idaho.
Nothing like Nonini. So tell me about the state of the race.
Oh, things are going great. G's been home and traveling around up to the Sandpoint area, over to the Silver Valley on Sunday and Monday, my home area where I grew up, and speaking to a church group, non-denominational church group on Sunday, and speaking to the Kootenai County Central Committee last night, and off to see a school today and present a $500 check. It's just going great. I've got a table here full of all the good things going on in Idaho. It's amazing what's going on in Idaho. People love Idaho, and the race is going great. I'm just excited to be on the campaign trail and talking around the state.
Well, thinking about this, how do you see this playing out, and are you going to pull this out?
I think I'm going to pull it out. 5 people in the race. Some of us with a bunch of legislative experience, some with none, but the way I'm working, it's peaking at the right time for Bob Nonini. I'm excited about it, excited about what I'm hearing around the state, excited when I talk to people. I think things are going very well.
Indeed. So let's talk a little bit about your conservative record. Are you, in fact, the most conservative member of the legislature?
Well, there's some pretty conservative members over on the House side. We've added a couple pretty conservative members on the Senate side in the last year or two, but I think I'm right up in the top of the pack with that other group of good conservatives, liberty-minded legislators.
Now, come on, you're not saying anything that'll get everybody fired up. You're speaking political speak today.
Well, I'm trying to be sensitive. It's a trait that I haven't always had. People, some friends have said years ago, Nonini will say what other people only think. But it's just good. Every article I read, Idaho feels growing pains, surging population. Idaho, the fastest growing state, where we've moved up in rankings because of our great tax policy. There's an article in a local paper this morning in the north. Another Joel growth, looking at the building permits requested and being issued for the Kootenai County area. And it's no different in the Treasure Valley. It's no different in the Magic Valley. It's just something around this state. There's a reason that I guess people want to come to Idaho, huh? It's a great state with good tax policy, conservative legislature, and they want to get out of the crazy states that they've come from, and just excited to see it all. But we have to be able to manage that. We have to be able to provide the right education, the right infrastructure to keep up with all of it, and that'll be a good act, a good balancing act for the next legislature and the next governor and the next lieutenant governor.
Well, why don't we build a wall?
Where around Idaho?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm all for a wall on the southern border. That's for sure.
Senator Bob Nonini with us, our great friend at KIDO Talk Radio. So let's talk some issues here. Let's talk about something that has been brought up at these debates: education. You're all about education. We've got a teacher shortage, a teacher crisis. What's the Nonini plan for education? And as lieutenant governor, can you really make a difference?
I can make a difference as lieutenant governor with my experience in the education arena. First of all, it's about parental choice. It's not about government telling anybody how they'll be educated, how their children will be educated. It's about parental choice. The group I was speaking to on Sunday, a large amount of them were homeschooled parents, and they had a number of their children with them. And the reason they live in Idaho is because we have no regulations on homeschooling. It's the freest state in the country. Parental choice, homeschooling, charter schools. I'm going out to a charter school on Monday to present a signed copy of a piece of legislation I did this year that the governor had signed about STEM diplomas. It goes to the workforce. It goes to 6,000 unfilled STEM jobs projected to be in the tens of thousands by 2025. It's career technical, K-Tech, the Kootenai Technical Education Campus, what they do in the Magic Valley, what they do in the Treasure Valley with career technical. We need to provide the employees for the employers that want to come to Idaho. And that is a big issue, and I think I know I'm the only candidate that has the experience in that race. I find it funny my opponents are talking about education issues. See, in all the years I served with my opponents in the legislature, those in the lieutenant governor's race, none of them talked about education. But now if you watched the debate the other night with Labrador, Little, and Alquist, they all talk about education. And so now the lieutenant governor candidates all want to talk about education. And I would ask, where were those candidates in the 10 years they served, in the 14 years they served, and in the 6 years they've served in the legislature? When I was talking about it, working on controversial issues, getting successful legislation passed, they were never talking about education. But funny, when you run for a different office, everyone wants to talk about education. Talk is cheap. Let's see the action.
Well,
I delivered, and I continue and will continue to deliver.
And Nonini's all about the action.
Yes, I am, very much so. And you can look at my record on the career technical side, on the STEM side. These are what employers are screaming for, a trained workforce, and we have been providing it. And we will continue to do our work in the legislature and the executive branch. When I'm lieutenant governor, I just plead with the new governor to let me tackle those issues and continue the success I've had in my 14 years in the legislature.
You going to miss the legislature?
Well, yeah, I'll miss it, but I think I can be very involved in it. As a lieutenant governor, you will preside as president of the Senate, so you're with the senators every day during session. You'll be able to talk with them, work with leadership on both sides, participate in the leadership meetings with the governor and House and Senate leadership. So, I might miss some of the floor debates, but I also will like being in the executive branch of government where I can direct some of the good things that we need to do in Idaho.
Our great friend, Senator Bob Nonini, with us. So when are you coming back down?
I'll be down Thursday morning early. That's why I was listening to that weather forecast. I'm in Boise on Thursday, Friday, out to Nampa, Caldwell area a little bit on Friday, Jerome on Saturday morning for a couple of events, and then the Dairymen's Association in the Magic Valley is hosting an event for me on Saturday afternoon, and then back to Boise Saturday night. So, and then hitting the road for Eastern Idaho early next week to be over in the Idaho Falls area and be visiting with INL and some friends and supporters in the Idaho Falls, Pocatello area. So I'm just loving getting around this state. It just energizes me to no end.
Well, you do have the energy. Finally, Senator Nonini, we always appreciate you. Make your case to the voters. We'll have you on next week. We're going to hit the contenders now until the end and after the primary as well. We've made a new friend with you. Your thoughts on why people should vote for you?
Well, I just think similar to what was said by one of the gubernatorial candidates on the Republican governor's debate the other evening. Look at the record. Look at what I have been able to do. Look at how I'm rated by the conservative groups in Idaho, whether it's the endorsement I picked up from Idaho Chooses Life and my pro-life stance, whether it's the natural resources industry, Potlatch, or Roger Batt with Water Users Group, Clearwater Paper, the American Conservative Union. Yeah, I want people, and that's what I told a group I spoke to last night, the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee. Informed voters. Be an informed voter. Look at the records. Look at what we've done. You just can't listen to a candidate say, we'll do this and we'll do that, or I'm rated, or I've done this. And look at the records. They're easily accessible on the legislative website by third-party groups. The records are so important to see, are we telling the truth? Are we have the ratings? Are we the conservative person, or do we just say we're conservative when some of my opponents say that and then have voted against the NRA? Or they say they're pro-life and they haven't voted on issues. Or they talk about education and they've never served on it or never said anything in their 12 years in the legislature about it. So records are important. Talking to third-party surveys and statements on candidates is what's important. Be an informed voter.
Senator Nonini, we'll see you next week.
I look forward to it, and hopefully I want to be back in the studio with you so we can do some high-fiving and talk some football also.
Roll Nonini.
That's right. Idaho needs Nonini. Have a good day, Kevin. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Yes, sir. Take care, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Safe travels to Senator Nonini. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And let's go to the publisher of the Gem State Patriot, Tea Party Bob.
Mr. Miller, great show this morning. I'm glad you got all these candidates on. We can finally find out who's who and what's what.
The contenders.
Well, yes. It really drives me nuts when these candidates who complain about big government but are some of the biggest abusers and users of big government. Tommy complains every time he gets on a soapbox about how big government has grown under the current administration. Yet he is one of the biggest abusers when he uses our taxpayer money to build his urban renewal projects, which in turn cause us countless infrastructure problems, as once the project's done, the same taxpayers whose money are used to finance the urban renewal project are left holding the bag when it comes to adding the necessary infrastructure to handle the growth, while the developers like Gardner Group and Tommy walk away with all the cash. When I listen to Brad Little, he keeps talking about raising teachers' salaries to $40,000 a year. But where was Brad's support for Senator Sidaway when he refused to hear any bills till the teachers' salaries were raised to $40,000? You didn't hear a peep out of Brad. Brad Little never spoke up. And in the meantime, we've lost thousands of our brightest teachers to other states that pay better. Brad was asked about the Wi-Fi and the Corrections Corporation of America scandal for our prisons and the tens of millions of dollars that cost the taxpayers. I don't remember good old Brad speaking up or complaining about the corruption in government at those times. I hear a lot of talk from these two candidates about how they're going to fix the problems we have. But my question is, why haven't they tried to fix these problems in the past? In fact, these two have done nothing to rectify these problems. Brad, when it comes to corruption in government, and Tommy, who was a doctor, never spoke out about transparency in health care or the monopoly of the 2 or 3 health insurance companies that they have in Idaho. These two gentlemen have been part of the problem in our state and not part of the solution. They are also running the most negative campaigns, beating up on each other, and Congressman Labrador. I'm just tired of hearing how Brad and Tom are going to fix problems that they helped create. The only real solution to the problems is coming from Labrador. He fought against Obamacare and high health care costs. He has a plan to get government waste and cronyism out of government And he has a plan to cut our taxes and put more money into the pockets of the taxpayers instead of the pockets of the crony lobbyists and politicians. I mean, just look at the past history. That's all you have to do. And you can make an easy decision on this. The problem is most people aren't going to look backwards. They're going to be listening to what's going on now, and they're never going to get it. They're not going to understand why both of these guys are not good for Idahoans and for our government. That's about all I have to say.
Well, I'm disappointed.
Why?
Well, you save your best material for video now. I mean, Tea Party Bob, you're now doing video. and you know, I talked about this by myself at 6 o'clock, where you have Representative Malik going after Russ Fulcher, saying he's a career politician, and then saying that Representative Malik and Governor Otter fought Obama. And I don't know, again, that might work for the general election. I don't know if that's going to fly with primary voters.
Well, you know, I'll tell you, when you go back in history, and you know I was there with you for 4 months talking about this healthcare exchange.
Right.
Luke Malik led the charge of the Gang of 14 to get that bill passed so that we had a state healthcare exchange. And what happened? Tens of thousands of Idahoans lost their insurance policies and had to go to the exchange to get their insurance coverage. And it cost them more money and higher deductibles. Well, what has he done for us in the past? Again, let's go back to the past history and look at these guys and see what they've done. It's not good. Everybody that wants to run and is complaining about the other people are the ones who were the perpetrators of the original crimes.
Well,
don't you get tired of people taking your tax money?
We call that projection. Tea Party Bob, publisher of the Gem State Patriot, we appreciate your contribution today.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Tea Party Bob now on video. Traffic and weather together. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget, keep us here throughout the workday. Glenn will keep you rolling in the morning if you're driving around or need some motivation at work. Dave Ramsey, yesterday he was talking to somebody about how to retire. Of course, spend less, save more, our great friend Dave Ramsey. And then in the afternoon, our wonderful friend, the champion of conservatism, just named to Time Magazine's one of the 100 most influential people in the country, Sean Hannity from 3 to 6, and then Lars Larson as well. So appreciate the great new addition of Lars Larson with us. Tomorrow, we're on the road. 2 big events. One being we're at the College of Western Idaho, thanks to CapEd Credit Union, Team Mazda Subaru, and our new friends Grade Power Learning in Meridian. Call them today for tutoring or help with your kids studying. 608-5061. That's 608-5061. And your chance to win tickets to the Boise Music Festival. Thank you, Thursdays. Kicking off with tickets to see Robin Thicke, Baby Bash, Granger Smith, Parmalee. A little eclectic mix this year. I like going to see everybody there, the energy, the enthusiasm, and you can win tickets simply by listening to us. Our way, our humble way of thanking you for listening, not only in the morning, but throughout the day on KIDO Talk Radio. Ray Amaya, great job as always. College of Idaho in Nampa, get ready. We're coming for you tomorrow. May God bless you and your family and keep the faith.